Before I just go through and explain all these tools one by one, I just want to show you how well this document is written. And how can you read that document? So for example, this one first. The critical control is defined that we should have an inventory of the authorized and unauthorized devices. This is critical control 1. What would happen if this control is not in your organization? This all is available. Then how to implement it? And measure the effectiveness of this control. All these technical small details are available. How can you implement that? And not only that, how can you map it around few processes, and what are the kind of KPIs? And this technology, they can also link it to the NIST guidelines. How does this standards map it to NIST? And ultimately, what are the kind of KPIs that you can associate with this control? So all in all, I've gone through that document, and this is my personal opinion. This is one of the best documents that can help you, at least to begin with, in your organization. Moving on towards the critical controls. The first control says that you should have an inventory of authorized and unauthorized devices. Now, you can do your organization's gap analysis straight away. You don't have to answer this to me, but I will pose questions you can ask yourself. You don't have to answer me. In your organization, do you have an inventory of authorized or unauthorized devices? Either at the process level or either at the technology level. At times they can be at both. Inventory of authorized and unauthorized software, secure configurations for hardware and software, the continuous vulnerability and remediation. Do you have the malware defense controls in place? Do you have an application software security in place? Do you have a wireless device controls in place? Do you have the data recovery capability? Do you have a security skills assessment program ever run in your organization? Do you have secure configurations for network devices? Because most of the timing, the vendors come, the network vendors, they are just in so much hurry to put their system up and running and efficient that they don't bother about securing the routers or switches. But we are also a vendor, we know that happens. Use of limitation of control of ports, controlled use of administrative privileges, boundary defenses, the maintenance, monitoring and analysis of audit logs, controlled access based on the need to know, audit monitoring and control. This is one very interesting one, because most of the times what has been found in the documents that people who had left the organizations, their accounts had never been disabled. So somebody who takes control of your organizations, he would like to use these accounts to make you look like that this is something that what has been happening is genuine. Incident DLP, data loss prevention, incident response and management, secure network engineering, external pen test and contextual risk management. Now, I cannot go into the detail of all those and how to implement it. I've taken a few case studies, few examples on how you could implement and what should be considered while you are acquiring these controls or implementing these controls. And what if it is not governed with the process, what can happen? Vulnerability assessment and continuous remediation. Obviously, you need to acquire a tool, that's fine, the emphasis could be on anything based on your need. You need to scan your databases, networks, web servers, applications. A lot of choices are available. I'm not going to talk about the vendors here. Absolutely not. We wanted to talk about the technology. So there are a lot of vendors available, you know all of them, select whatever you want to. But once you have acquired it, this is one part. Unless this tool is not governed by this process, nothing would happen. The first thing that you need to define is the frequency of scanning. Are you going to scan all the time? Or are you going to define some intervals on which you should be doing it? The reporting mechanism. Once the scan has identified that these are the vulnerabilities, what are the actions that you are going to take? The action plans must be defined. The contingency planning for patch management. Most of the time it has been observed that if you directly patch the system up, it would give you a lot of conflicts. The patching should be done first in the test environment, make sure that the system is running, and then push it out. Then compare results with the previous scans. Couple of months back when you scanned, and now what you scanned, what are the differences? Are there any new vulnerabilities, new threats in your organizations? And strict monitoring and audit of the access. So if all these things are not going to be in place, just buying a tool itself.
For patching, you need to buy the software itself, so your licensing comes first and patching comes first.
As I said, I'm not going to talk about the technology, but there are tools available that could scan as well as patch together under one license.
देखो अगर आपने यूनिक्स खरीद ली और आप उसकी लाइसेंस नहीं खरीदा तो आपको उसके पैचेस नहीं मिलते.
Obviously, that's understood. That's absolutely understood. अगर आपने उसकी maintenance नहीं renew की, you're not going to get it. I buy that. Absolutely.
The point I'm making is within the Pakistani environment, we tend to steal software and use it, and that is a threat itself.
Absolutely, I agree. Absolutely, I agree. This is where we, in the last part of our conclusion, there is something that the government must do as well, that the regulators must do as well, to tighten things in terms of making sure that there is less use of the pirated software. Ultimately, it impacts your systems as well.
But risk if you're not making that much money, then maybe you can't
I
afford to.
buy that. That's why the idea of discussing it here is that if you have an organization which has like 30 people or 100 people, you don't need an enterprise security framework that is probably required for a telecom. You need to prioritize those controls. I agree with you absolutely that these all 20 controls that we've talked about, they're not must. It's you who need to define that these are the kind of controls that that suits to my organization, or maybe prioritize them. So whenever you land in a big contract, put it in the GRC. Anyways, quickly moving on towards the application software security. In Kaspersky Labs' recent Q2 report, what they suggested or what they identified that a lot of threats or the source of malware injections are the websites that have been customly developed. So we buy software, which is fine. We cannot test the security of Microsoft Word. We cannot, test a web application such as Facebook. But whatever we are developing, we can at least test that. So that my website, my application does not become an infection engine for others. And that's where these, website vulnerability scanning and the web application scanning comes into play. When it comes to security skills assessment, this is one of the most important areas and the leastly taken care of. I've not seen many organizations who have a formal security assessment program in place. We do conduct trainings here and there, yeah, we are doing it, but not a formal program. When I was hired in Dagon for the Asian Games, the security awareness training was part of my employee induction. I worked with a few good companies in Pakistan, but never ever in the HR induction, security is talked about. Not at all. There is one document that people give, people sign it without reading it, and here it goes. This is the confidentiality agreement. And third day, lo and behold, what happens? The entire company knows my salary, whereas I've given a bounded written agreement that I will not disclose it with anyone. So this is important. Must have. We as organizations must focus on this. Then the data loss prevention. I did touch a little bit about it earlier as well. This is one prime example of the way we buy technologies. My financial documents were stolen. My IP was stolen. An Excel document containing my balance sheet is out. And suddenly the boss says, "Oh, how did it happen?" The network team goes to the boss and says, "Yes, there is a DLP that you install it in there, and nobody would be able to print it, scan it, email it, take a print screen, nothing. Even if he is trying to send a document that contains a $sign in it, he would not be able to. If he is trying to send it or push it to a Gmail, he will not be able to. Even the document containing the $sign. Oh, that is brilliant. How much it cost? $5,000, $10,000, whatever, depending upon the number of license. You put it in place. But what people do not realize or understand that having that tool is only one part. What it comes up with, that for a DLP you first need to define what your policies and procedures are, because the tool would not let you define it itself. The tool is only there to automate things for you. It's only good as it is. It will not define for you what is critical for you, what is confidential for you. So all the policies and procedures related to implementing DLP should already be in place. It's a prereq. Then the classification of information. What is a classified document? Because the tool can only identify, yes, if it's classified, if it's critical, if it's top secret or a secret or confidential or non-confidential. Tool can only differentiate it based on these 4 or 5 tools. But how have you classified? If there is an employee survey which you have marked non-confidential, it's bound to go outside. So this is prereq for it. And then the business workflow. What would happen if this document goes outside your organization? How are you going to take care of the incident management? Something has gone out, who do I contact to? How does my DLP react to it? Who owns this piece of information? So buying a tool for the sake of buying a tool would never work. Absolutely never work. And then the GRC, the governance, risk and compliance. This is the tool that sits on the top of your IT hierarchy. It actually automates everything in your organization. May it be procurement, may it be admin, everything. So a single workflow. For example, issuing a purchase order, putting, sending a leave requisition, or any kind of vendor management. So what it comes up with, it comes with the policy management, it comes with modules like risk management, incident management, vendor management, and audit management. Comes with everything in place. So just like a paperless technology, no signatures, nothing, no papers, everything is being done just like a corporate workflow. I have worked for your organizations who have implemented it. It works brilliantly well. Everything is systematic, the organization has a complete visibility, but for that, what it comes with a minimum of a year and a half effort to streamline this. There are vendors who provide this technology and it's very costly. It costs you millions of dollars in licensing. But the analysts say that 80% of the effort in implementing that tool comes from this part. Technology is just there to facilitate. What you would need to do is to define your business processes, map them along, cross-functional references, conduct risk management, define workflows, and then integrity monitoring. And then again, incident management and all that. So these kind of tools, if someone is interested to buy or procure them, the first thing that we need to have is a focus on a process. And trust me, if you have whatever existing infrastructure people have in their organization, if it is governed by the process, it can make it doubly efficient. Otherwise, it's just a tool. It wouldn't do anything. And when it comes to having all these tools in place, this is how your organization would look like. So at the lowest level, you have data which is processed by application, runs on a host, connected to an internet, then through parameter physical, and then on the top sits your organization, as in policy and procedures. And all these layers are governed through some controls. May it be a building management system, may it be a next generation firewall, IPS, may it be host protection, may it be multi-factor authentication, data loss prevention, encryption, scanning, malware, identity and access management, security, smart IDs, security analytics, whatever the technology is. This is how the organization looks like when you have controls in place. But again, as I said, one word, process. If all this technology is not governed by a process, it's of no use. Here are a few symptoms of vulnerable organization. I could see some smiles already in here, but let's just go through them one by one. The people in vulnerable organizations, coming from the study, what they say, I understand the process, I understand the technology, but I don't know how they work together. What can I do to integrate them? There are a lot of best practices. Which one of them suit my organization? Should I follow NIST? Should I go for ISO 27001? Should I implement COBIT? Should I implement ITIL? I'm also developing, I think I should also be focusing on CMMI. I have a web application, I should have OWASP as well. So from a CIO point of view, if I look at that, there would be 15 different initiatives that will be working in the organization. And the organization will be hell confused. There are too many, I'm confused, yes. We are too busy in our day-to-day security operations, we don't care about process. And no one follows the process, say, what can I do? Even if I define, nobody would follow it. So it's just a waste of my time. And frequently change the security technology in place. Today I have an X vendor. Next year I'm not going to renew them. I want to go with a Y vendor. 2 years later, I don't want to renew them again. I want a Z vendor for the same technology. So blaming the technology would never work. And if all these things are happening in an organization, then the answer is very simple. We need to have an enterprise security framework in place that should be able to define what controls that you have, what processes that you have, what technology controls you have, what process controls you have, and how they integrate with each other. And with that, I conclude that session, and my colleague Mohammad Furqan Khan would help us to develop an enterprise security framework. Furqan sir, over to you. I already have vocal cords set up. If you need some water, I can really bring it. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. I hope you can hear me loud and clear. Thank you very much, Arvind, for taking us through these two sessions. And what we have done so far is we have introduced you to the concept of cybersecurity, what is involved, and to better understand that. You might be knowing it, but there are different things that I hope that may help you to better understand what cybersecurity means and what are the threats involved. And the second part, as he was going through some controls, and he was talking about technology and process, and these are two types of controls that can be applied. But the dilemma is, you have the technology, you have the controls, you might be knowing it, but if you're not integrating them together, the process and technology, this may not be effective, this may not be efficient. So the purpose of this presentation is basically to share with you one of the approaches that we have defined to develop enterprise security framework. I'll be shortly going through this, but as we have a bit of time, what I can brief you about it, that I will take you through the steps involved in this approach, and I will be sharing with you some links to the standards and best practices that help you to establish this framework. But I might not be able to do the justice with those standards and best practice introduction, but I'll just take you through around like what is relevant and what does it offer, and this is what the agenda for this presentation is. So the approach that we have defined is called READI, R-E-A-D-I, and that stands for 5 steps. And these 5 steps are: realize enterprise security needs. So this is the first step, and we'll go through these steps one by one. The first step is realize enterprise security needs. What do we need? What organizations have and what security needs are there that needs to be addressed by this framework. The second step about evaluate existing security posture. Okay, we have these security needs identified, we need to have this and that, but what do we have in place at the moment? And that is understanding your existing security posture. The next step is assess enterprise risk. So having understanding of what your security requirements are, needs are, and then having known what existing controls are there in place and what is your current security posture, based on this you have to assess the enterprise risk. And based on this risk, the next step is define process to regulate technology, because assessing enterprise risk that will lead you to identify the controls to be applied, and these controls will involve implementation of technology and processes to mitigate the risk that you have for the enterprise. The last step in this approach is implement a security management system. So that is basically going to integrate everything that we just talked about, all 4 steps earlier than that. And it's not the final point. You don't stop here. Basically, it's a continuous process, because in the changing environment, the business environment, operational environment, you have to look back and review what you have. your security needs might be changing over a period of time due to different reasons. Because of your environment, because of your business, because of your technology use or other things. So this is a continuous process that will go in a continuous cycle. Let's talk about the first step. The established enterprise security needs based on company's objectives or business functions, operational environment, or governing laws and regulations or future directions and initiatives. What might be examples of this that might relate to identifying new security needs or changing security needs? Any ideas?
An attack that might have occurred in your organization.
Please come again.
An attack that might have occurred in your organization.
Okay.
As you know that information security requirements always comes from the business. So if there's a business requirement, so it always inherits the information security requirement. So basically, your business requirements for information security is...
For example, we are going to launch an online application.
Exactly.
So that would have some security requirements or needs associated with that.
True.
You're going for cloud computing infrastructure.
So
Again, that would have-
in that case again, your business objectives as well as your laws and regulation, your local laws and international laws.
Yes, what I'm trying to say is that these are all areas that you need to be considered while identifying security needs and requirements. One or many of these would link to what you need to have. Maybe it is linked to the objective or business function or operation environment, or maybe related to either or many of these. Similarly, if you are having a new promotion that is being designed or a new product that is being designed to be launched, and that relates to intellectual property, and you don't want competitors to get hold of this, and that is posing a new security need that you need to protect, and something needs to be there that will protect your IP for that purpose. So these are a few examples like how these things, objectives, business function, operational environment, governing laws, regulation, etc., they help you to understand what security needs of the organization are. The next step is evaluate existing security posture. And this step basically refers to reviewing your existing security arrangement, and that refers to what do you have in place, what kind of controls you have in place. But how would you know that? We'll go through that example like how we can do that. But what is involved in reviewing your existing security arrangement? Identifying your strength, what do you have in place and that is working, and what you don't have in place and or is not effective. So these are, you can say, bottom lines of this step, that you should review what you have, what's working, what's not working. How can you do this? Examples are, you may perform a gap analysis, like for example, gap analysis against ISO 10001, that is Information Security Management System requirement, or 27002, that is Code of Practice for Information Security Management, provides you implementation guidance for several controls that you can apply for information security. Or if you are a bank and possibly involved in, you can say, payment card, PCI DSS, you may perform a gap analysis against PCI DSS. So these are, you can say, ways to assess where you stand. What are the gaps available and what you need to do. So this is part of kind of, this is part of just few examples, but it really depends on the organization, what their business is, what their focus is, what their objectives are, and based on that they can choose appropriate standard guidelines or any best practice that they want to. The next is basically possibly going to be common across different types of organization, and that is security assessment. And that involves network architecture security review. And this is not based on, you can say, industry specific, it is security specific. If you have a network, it should follow some best practices. It should be secure enough, like applying DMZs, using firewalls at appropriate places, closing and opening ports as appropriate, having a configuration as per the standard that does not allow your network to be compromised. So all this thing basically is part of the security architecture review. And then Next part is security configuration reviews. Like we talked about patch management, we talked about vulnerability system, but how would you know that your network devices and or operating systems are vulnerable? The one way of finding it out is applying secure configuration reviews. And you can do it using guidelines from the NIST, CIS, or other sources that help you to identify if things need to be fixed in your operating system or network devices. So these are a few examples of the next step. Evaluate existing security posture. That helps you to understand what do you have, what you don't have, what is working, what not working. The next step, the third one, is assess enterprise risk. We'll go in more detail later, but briefly speaking, this involves identifying your assets. What do you need to protect against? And once you identify your assets, then you have to analyze risk. Analyze risk involves basically identifying the threats, the vulnerabilities, and the consequence that may have if a threat exploits a vulnerability. We have already talked about what vulnerability, what threat is about, but identification part is under analysis. And the second part of analysis is after identifying the risk with threats, vulnerabilities, and consequence of that, you have to evaluate them. Sorry. You have to identify, assess it. Basically, you have to identify what the probability of this risk is and what is the impact of this risk. And afterwards, you have to evaluate whether to have a decision on that, whether you are going to accept this risk or you are going to treat this risk. Is it something that you want to take care of, or it's okay, in our environment, we need not to worry about it. So these are the steps involved in assess enterprise risks. This is one example, one of the best practices that you can look at to help you identify how you can perform this step, assess enterprise risk. It's a very good example because this is going to cover from top to bottom, end-to-end organization in the risk assessment. And this is a best practice from NIST, SP 839, Managing Information Security Risk. As you can see on the screen, it provides you integrated enterprise-wide risk management approach. It takes care of identification of risk at the strategic level, from there to the technical risk level. For example, at organizational level, you define the vision, the mission, the business function. And what are the risks associated with that vision, mission, and business function that you have identified? Then, going through the next step, the tier 2, you have to design, you have to develop, and you have to implement these missions and business functions in your organization. So while designing and developing it, while implementing it, what are the risks?